invite Dr. Phil to announce our program today.
Well, I'm excited to announce our program today. I think most of you know Nancy and her husband Bud and their family. Nancy began a new career after her first career. She decided to write and become an author, and she's very successful with it. I know we're excited about hearing her venture into this, how she got here, and where she's going from here. So Nancy, come on up. Welcome Nancy up here.
Okay. Thank y'all very much for having me here today. You all know that authors and politicians love words and tend to use a lot of them, so I made myself a script today so I wouldn't get too talkative. I appreciate being here. I love writing. I appreciate any opportunity I get to share that love with others. As he said, most of you know me as Bud's wife or Nancy, but I have an alter ego, and her name is Dana Wayne. That name was chosen for me by my mother when I was a freshman in high school. I've always wanted to be a writer. At that point in my life, I never thought about getting married and changing my name. I just knew that my maiden name of Scroggins just wasn't very writery. So we were brainstorming one day and came up with Dana as a first name, which is actually a variation of my middle name, Diana. And Wayne, because John Wayne was her favorite character, and Dana and Wayne sounded good together, so ta-da! Dana Wayne was born. I'm currently self-published 2 books, and a third one will be out next month, or hopefully next month. My first book, Secrets of the Heart, came out in June of 2016, and it actually won first place in a statewide contest sponsored by the Texas Association of Authors for contemporary romance, which I was just super excited about. My second book, Mill on a Broom, came out last April, and it's currently in the running for the Western Historical Romance category for their current contest. So, yeah, that's a real stiff category this year, so we'll see how that pans out. They both got numerous 5-star reviews from online magazines that do that sort of thing, as well as book blogs, and so I'm very proud of it. My third book is Whispers on the Wind, and it is a romantic suspense about a ghost that helps the sheriff solve a murder. It was a big stretch for me as a writer, but I'm really tickled with how it came out. So, how did I get here? Well, my dad loved paperback westerns. He had a stack of them beside his chair and read every single day. I can remember sitting in his lap as a child while he read to me. Now, I don't know if it was the words, how he read them, or just what, but they could paint a picture so vivid, I could see it in my mind. So that's where my dream of becoming a writer was born. I wanted everybody to be able to have that experience. It's easy to have a dream. It's a lot harder to bring that dream to fruition when you have to balance it with work, life, kids, baseball, and all these other things. Over the years, I've written a lot of stuff. I've written short stories, I've written poems, I've done articles for the newspaper, articles for anthologies, the various writers groups I belong to and put together. But it wasn't until I retired in 2013 that I actually got to write a novel, which is what I've always wanted to do. In all honesty, writing that story was the easy part. Publishing and marketing, not so much. When I considered what to do about publishing my first book, I was so green, I didn't even know what questions to ask, much less who to ask most. So I depended a lot on other writers to help me, which was kind of a double-edged sword because I discovered real quick that not every writer is willing to share what they know. And I promised myself I would never be one of those. So any opportunity I get to share my experiences, good, bad, or otherwise, I take them. It took some time, but I discovered there were some questions I needed to ask. First of all, what's my ultimate goal with this whole process? How much time, effort, and money am I willing to invest? How much control am I willing to relinquish? What are my expectations? What do I hope to get from all of this? In the world of publishing, there's two options: traditional publishing or self-publishing. With traditional publishing, you typically have an agent involved. It's less expensive for the author. If you're lucky, you get an advance. There's a wider distribution opportunity with libraries and bookstores and those kinds of things. A lot of the tedious stuff like editing and formatting and cover design, all that's included. And you have some marketing power there and a professional team to work with. Okay, so what's the downside? Well, first of all, it's more expensive to the consumer because the publisher wants his money back before you get anything. And if you've priced books lately by major authors, you see what I'm talking about. An author that I follow just released a new book, and I said, oh good, I'm gonna go get it. The ebook was $15. No, I ain't doing it. I'll wait till it's on half price and books $1 million. It's a very slow process. It could take 2 years is not uncommon for a book to see the light of day. And it's hard to get in the door with the big publishing houses. There is a big loss of control over your product and very low royalty rates. 7.25% is common, and that's after the publisher gets all his money. And it's almost impossible to make changes to your book once you get it out there. There's no marketing assistance unless you're Dean Koontz or Nora Roberts. You have to do all that yourself. And there are some potentially prohibitive contract clauses. You really have to read fine print in that. Okay, that's traditional publishing. What about self-publishing? Well, in self-publishing, you have total creative control. There's a big sense of empowerment involved in that as well, because you learn a lot of things. Some of them the hard way, but you learn. And you get to make contact with professionals, and you get to step way out of your comfort zone and find new areas. There's a faster time to market. You don't have to wait that 2 years. Better royalty rates. And you still have access to a global market, but you retain all the rights to your work. If traditional publishing is something that you aspire to, self-publishing is kind of a way to get you in the door. Because it's sort of like if you do it well, they'll come to you. And if you've self-published, 2, 3, 4 books that are doing well, and then you go to a big house publisher, they're more inclined to say, okay, let's look at this. So, what's the downside? Well, you're responsible for everything. You do it all. There is no professional editing assistance, no cover assistance, no nothing. And unfortunately, there's a lack of prestige within the publishing industry. Indie authors, which I'm considered an indie author, independent author, they're sort of frowned on in the industry. And a lot of that has to do with the explosion of the self-publishing market. Not everyone takes the time necessary to make sure that the product they put out is a good product. Consequently, indie authors as a whole end up with a bad name. It's difficult, but not impossible, to get your book into a bookstore. And because you are responsible for everything, you need a budget up front so you know what you have to work with. And you do all the marketing. So, with all this information, why did I decide to self-publish? I actually talked to a couple of agents, one from New York and one from California, and both of them were interested in representing me in my work. But the more I learned about traditional publishing, the more I knew it wasn't for me. I'm a little bit of a control freak, which is like saying you're a little bit pregnant, but I wasn't willing to give up control of something I worked so hard to put together. And a traditional publisher can make changes or can make you make changes from day one. They can change anything, the cover, the title, the length, add to, take away from, and you can't do anything about it. So, and again, it can take up to 2 years for your book to see the light of day, provided they decide to publish it after they bought it. Because the thing is, they buy the rights to it, but things change. What's hot today is cold tomorrow. And your book may sit on the shelf for years, unless you can manage to get the rights back. And so, again, there's nothing you can do about that. So, I'm going to have to do all the marketing either way. I could wait for years, give up all this control and most of the royalties, or I could do it now, maintain control, and get the royalties. Plus, you know, I'm not getting any younger, so waiting 2 years really wasn't an option. But, let me tell you, that process is hard. It's a lot of work. Now, I learned a lot with my first book, and so my second book wasn't quite as hard, and my third one was even easier. But it is a tremendous amount of work. You have to provide your own editor, proofreader, beta readers, formatters, cover designers, and I had to become a social media expert all the while trying to write another book. Way too much sugar for a dime. I also learned a lot of things along the way. Sadly, not everyone has your best interest at heart. Ask questions, lots of questions, always trust your instincts. So, with the help of another author, I found a great cover designer. She did the covers for all 3 of my books. And that was after one very expensive learn from your mistakes things. And I found a wonderful lady in Tyler who takes care of a lot of the tedious and time-consuming piece of the puzzle where you have to get all this stuff put together and you've got to upload it and you've got to format it and you've got to send it to this place and that. No. I send her my covers, my manuscript, she takes care of the rest. I did try to do some of it, but I learned right quick that was more than I wanted to deal with. Writing is hard enough, but when you add all that in, it is a mind-blowing operation. I want to write, that's all. I just want to write. Writers, as a rule, generally fall into 2 categories. Plotters and outliners who meticulously map out their work before they ever type the first word. Or a pantser. I'm a pantser. I write by the seat of my pants. I get an idea, I sit down and start writing till the words quit coming. I have tried to outline, and my critique partner is always trying to get me to do an outline to keep from hitting those walls that I get from time to time. But it's like putting myself in this little box and saying, you have to do this. But I don't want to do that. I want to do this. So I just write, and it's worked very well for me. And ideas can come from anywhere. For Secrets of the Heart, it was a conversation with a traveling nurse I was working with in home health. For Mail Order Groom, it was a conversation with another writer who said, why do people always talk about mail order brides? Why not a mail order groom? And I went, why not? I looked on Amazon, found 3 books that said mail order groom. I went, whoo, okay. So consequently, that was a good decision. My last book, Whispers on the Wind, literally came to me in a dream. Woke up one morning, 3 o'clock, this idea dancing around in my head. Wouldn't leave me alone. Got up, turned on my computer, wrote for an hour and a half, went back to bed. And, but I will tell you, that's happened more than once. But I absolutely love to write. I love that whole creative process that starts with one single idea and then grows and expands with each subsequent what if until you reach the end. And by the way, that's a writer's 4 favorite words. What if the end? What if this happened instead of that? What if he went over here instead of over there? What if this happened instead of that? What if? Each what if brings you closer to the end. And I write every day except Sunday. Sometimes on Saturdays if we don't have a car show. If I'm on a roll, Bud will quietly fix himself another plate of leftovers and wait till my imaginary friends quit talking to me, which has been as late as 4 o'clock in the morning. And that's happened to him more than once. And strange as it may seem, it's not uncommon for the story to take over and dictate what happens next versus the writer. And that concept is really hard for non-writers to understand, but it's a fact. In Secrets of the Heart, it ended entirely different than I originally had in mind. I had a whole different direction that I was aiming for, but I hit the wall, proverbial writer's block. Couldn't go forward, couldn't go backward. So I went to this writing workshop, and in talking with this presenter, I realized what the problem was. It was me. I was in the way. I was trying to make the story go where I wanted it to go versus letting the story lead me where it needed to go, where it wanted to go. So I paid attention, 2 chapters, started over, in less than 3 months it was done. And I usually try to focus on one project at a time, though I do have, right now I've got 4 or 5 books in different stages. If I hit a wall on one, I pick up another, write till the word quit. If that doesn't work, put it down, get another, write till the word quit. I don't know how it works, but it does, and that's what keeps me going. Bud tells me that I am the eternal optimist, and I happen to like that. He says I could walk into a room full of horsemen here and start looking for a pony. And it's true. I mean, I believe that outlook it's beneficial, and it works for me. And we've been married almost 40 years, so I guess it works for us too. But I'm a diehard romantic, so I write romantic stories. Under that general romance umbrella, which by the way generates sales in excess of $1 billion, almost $1.5 billion a year, and accounts for 40%, almost 40% of the fiction market. There are a ton of subgenres. The ones I write under are contemporary, Western historical, and romantic suspense. Let's face it, we live in a very hectic, stress-filled world. Reading, particularly a romance novel, but that's always happily ever after ending, takes us away for a while and lets us forget our troubles and live vicariously through the author's words. We know that no matter what, there's going to be a happily ever after. No matter how bleak things are, how bad things are, there's going to be a happily ever after. Somebody's going to find that pony. And personally, I think we need that underlying message of hope and encouragement. The good guy is always going to win. The heroine is going to find her hero, proving again it's possible to overcome any obstacle in your way, achieve success, and find happiness. I honestly never thought that my writing would see the light of day, but it did because I never gave up. I never gave up on my dream. Even though life kind of got in the way, I hung in there. It was never far away. It's hovering over here on the peripheral vision. I read somewhere a quote that says, if you can dream it, you can achieve it. There is no age limit on achieving your dream. I ain't gonna tell you how old I am, but I will tell you I'm on Medicare. So there is no age limit. The only limitation is your perseverance and your persistence. Okay, I was so anxious to make sure I didn't overrun my time. I'm going to rush through this, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
You mentioned in your introduction that the third novel was quite a stretch for you. In what way was that?
Well, because it's a romantic suspense, it involves a ghost, and in the subgenres, each genre has its own particular, not necessarily formula, but there's criteria. If it's a romantic suspense, there has to be a real intense suspense element, and that was what was difficult. Writing the romance part is easy because I'm a flowery, romantic person. Writing the suspense part was difficult. My critique partner, she's pretty tough. You can't be a writer and have thin skin, I will tell you that. She handed me a section one day and she said, look, you can do better than this and we both know it. So you need to redo this. Okay. Okay, try again.
You base any of your people on people with disabilities?
I actually do. There was a character in Secrets of the Heart called Miss Willie. That's based on my grandmother. So, but yeah, now if you ask Bud, he will tell you the hero was him.
Are your books on Amazon?
Amazon, they're on Kindle. I am looking into doing some audiobooks because that's the new wave. That's a whole different ballgame, and if I thought self-publishing was difficult, audio is even harder.
How do you get on there?
On
On Amazon?
You know, anybody can go to CreateSpace, write a book, and upload it to Amazon.
Just like selling anything else?
It's not, it's hard in one, it was hard for me because I had trouble with the formatting piece of it. Because everything is geared to numbers. If your book has this many pages, your cover has to be these dimensions, and you have to, there's real, very definite guidelines that have to be fulfilled. I just couldn't deal with that and write too. And then I found this lady in Tyler, and she takes care of all of that. I send her my manuscript, the cover, she gets it formatted. I work with an editor, I work with a proofreader. I have 3 beta readers and a critique partner. Because it's really important to me that when I put a product out there, you know, it's as good as it can be. Are we going to catch everything? No. You can read, you know, any of the books that are out there, and you're going to find things that slip through. But it isn't for me.
What's a beta reader?
A beta reader is somebody that, first of all, you don't want it to be somebody you know, because you want somebody that's going to be brutally honest. A beta reader is somebody that loves to read, that will read your book and say, I really like this, I didn't like that. You made maybe the timeline was wrong, or maybe in this chapter he had blue eyes, and this chapter he had brown. You know, things that just, but they catch stuff like that. But a beta reader looks at it strictly from a reader's viewpoint and says, I really liked it, I didn't like it. But you want it to be somebody you don't know, because your mother's going to love it, your sister's going to love it, you know, your best friend's going to love it. They're not going to tell you what you need to know.
I'm, I think, the newest member here in this club, and I think it's important to be yourself. I just want to thank you for never giving up on yourself, because it's inspiring as a young woman.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So,
You know, it helps that my husband and my family were just behind me 100%. They, you know, Bud he'll readily admit he hasn't read my books, but he can tell you about the characters. We've had conversations where he's like, you can't make him do that. That doesn't make sense. A guy wouldn't do that. I said, well, but my guy would. No. A real man wouldn't do that.
So all of your books are in digital format, you don't have any hard?
I do have hard copies. In fact, I brought some of them and put them up here. They had, this was my first one, this was my second one, and I forgot to bring the cover for Whispers on the Wind. But this was my first book. This was the one that won first place for contemporary, and then this one just came out this year. So, but they're available in there. They're available in on Kindle as well.
What's the minimum run on the hard, the paper?
There is no.
There is not. Just whatever
That's the
you
great
do.
thing about self-publishing. You know, if you go with, well, let me back that up. Depending, there are other self-publishers out there going through CreateSpace like I did, but using this lady in Tyler to help me. There is no minimum order. If you want 2 books, if you want 20 books, if you want 100. In some self-publishing venues, they have a minimum. And then you have to buy, you know, if you buy 50 books, it's this price. If you buy 100, it's this price. But it's, with CreateSpace, it's just the same price, whether you got 1 or 100. Anything else?
And Nancy, you mentioned a historical novel. Your writing was historical novel. I know you've got an idea, but needing to be accurate, how much time do you spend in research?
If anything ever happens to Bud, and the cops start looking at my search history on my computer, I'm liable to be in trouble. Because I do, in my Lord of Groom, I wanted this guy to be sick, but I didn't want him to die. So in 1878 Texas, how are you gonna kill somebody or make somebody sick? So I did this search for herbs that could make people sick. So, and then, my last one, Whispers on the Wind, there's a body, and I wondered, okay, this body's been here for a while, what's it gonna look like? So I start searching. How does a body decompose? How long does it take? And so, and it just really depends on what the item is. For Mail Order Groom, there was just a few things that I really had to look at, because one of them was the heroine takes a train ride from the fictional town of Bakersfield, Texas, to Fort Worth. Okay, was the train in operation then? So I had to research when those trains started, which was 1876. So by 1878, Fort Worth was a booming town thanks to the train. And so just things like that. But it really depends on what time period you're writing in. Some of them, like Regency England and those things, there's a lot more research in that. In Texas in 1878 and Bakersfield, some, but not a whole lot.
So, of all your books that you've wrote so far, if you had to recommend one to someone, what would it be and why?
Oh my goodness. That's like asking which one of my kids is my favorite. I like them all for different reasons. Secrets in the Heart was my first book, so I have kind of a soft place in my heart for it, but it was also my first book, and I learned some things from it. Mail Order Groom is really different, so I really like the characters in it. Emma is a 26-year-old whose father thinks he's dying and wants her to get married before he dies so she won't be alone, so he advertises for a groom. Well, she's very headstrong, and she doesn't like that idea. So, but she's pretty naive about some things too. So she was a fun character. And of the three, well, the other one won't be out until next month, but probably Mail Order Groom. Secrets is a real heartwarming love story. If that's that's what you like. It's a heartwarming love story. And they all have a little bit of humor in them because that's who I am. So.
Bridget's read your books, she thoroughly enjoyed them. I have not, but I'd like to. Do you have copies?
I do have some copies.
How much are they?
They're 12 apiece. Anything else? Thank y'all very much for having me.